Friends, at this time, please help us welcome the Executive Director of Shanti, Mr. Kaushik Roy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So here we all are. Some of you may have heard that this little fundraiser we try to throw each year got a little extra attention this time around. And the reason I say we try to throw each year is because sometimes it's just not possible, as was the case last year when we woke up in the morning of the day our gala was scheduled, only to learn that the hotel workers had just commenced a strike. And within an hour or so, Shanti's senior staff were on the phones, calling all of the evening's guests, letting them know there would be no fundraiser that night, that year, because Shanti was in full solidarity with the workers. And that applause is really for the workers. And so I want to take a moment and acknowledge the workers and friends from Local 2 who are here in the room tonight, ensuring that we have a wonderful event and wonderful evening. Thank you all very much. Like so many folks in San Francisco, I am actually a former Shanti volunteer. And even though my Shanti training was more than 15 years ago, back in 2004, I want you all to know that I believe with all my heart that what Shanti taught me during my training is exactly what our world needs right now. That training required me to stop and think about something none of us ever do have a chance in our lives. How do you create a relationship with another person where you truly see that person as your equal based on the shared humanity you both have? What would that look like? And even if you could do this, why would you? Why would it matter? Well, what it looks like is what Shanti volunteers and staff and hundreds of organizations around the world that were modeled after Shanti have been doing for the last 45 years. And that is showing up for those who have been made to feel as if they are the other in society, and saying to them, I recognize and respect our differences because our common humanity is so much greater. It is showing up for those who have faced their entire lives in the face of systemic inequities and disparities, and saying to them, your life story matters as much as anyone else's life story, and I am here to be a compassionate witness to yours. In short, it means showing up for people who are invisible in our world and saying, I see you. And why does it matter? Well, because when you cannot see the humanity in another person, you cannot offer compassion to that person. And when asked, most Americans answered that they wished they had more compassionate interactions in their lives. And at the same time, most Americans also said they feel that society is becoming less and less compassionate. And unfortunately, the research backs this up. there was a 30-year meta-analysis done on empathy in the United States, and the trends were pretty clear across every age group. Empathy is going down. Narcissism is going up. So, what do we possibly do with this disconnect? What do we do with the fact that our society seems to be getting less and less compassionate when more of us are saying we need more compassion in our lives? Dr. Samuel Oliner is one of the world's foremost experts on altruism, or the altruistic personality. And the topic is intensely personal for him. You see, Dr. Oliner grew up in Nazi-occupied Poland. And one day, when he was 12 years old, he managed to escape when the Nazis came to the ghetto in which he lived and executed everyone they found. As best as Dr. Oliner could later verify, he was the one survivor. And he says there was only one reason why he survived. In his own words, he owes his life to a Polish farmer's wife named Balwina, who risked her own life to hide him, to feed him, to clothe him, and to help him pass as a Catholic boy for the rest of the war. Balwina not only saved Dr. Oliner's life, she helped forge the path in which it would be headed. Because after the war, there was a question Dr. Oliner was determined to answer about Balwina and people like her. Why? Why were there these exceptionally rare individuals, less than a small fraction of 1%, who would, for no external rewards, risk their own lives, risk their families' lives to help, oftentimes, perfect strangers, especially when no one else around them was doing this? Dr. Oliner launched one of the largest projects of its kind, and he conducted interviews with many hundreds of people who lived in Nazi-occupied parts of Europe after the war. And he divided all the people he spoke to into two groups. There were the non-rescuers, and then there were the rescuers, like Balwina, the woman who saved his own life. And two of the biggest distinguishing characteristics he identified between the non-rescuers and the rescuers were these. One, the rescuers were much more likely to say it was instilled in them growing up that each human life was sacred. And two, those in the group of rescuers were much more likely to say, as kids, they were taught when they saw someone else suffering, it was their responsibility to do something about it. Compassion does not happen by accident. It is not enough to just want a more compassionate world, but rather enough people have to work to make a more compassionate world. Because we can't physically force anyone to feel more compassion, right? You can't literally or figuratively twist someone's arm until they are a more compassionate person. We have so many great electeds here tonight. You can't legislate compassion. There is not a bill that can be passed which would compel even one person to feel more compassion in their heart. So you can't force compassion. You cannot legislate compassion. There is only one thing you can do. You can only be more compassionate and teach others how to be more compassionate. This is the seminal decision that has been placed upon us in this moment. Do we leave it to chance? Do we leave it to hope that somehow our world will become more compassionate? Or do we work to make it so? If you are willing to support and work for a more compassionate society, this is your time. The world is crying for your action. It is not an overstatement to say that if enough of us do not step up now, my 4-year-old daughter's generation may not have the same opportunities to do so. And this is the enduring legacy of Shanti Project. For 45 years, Shanti has pioneered a path to cultivate compassion in San Francisco and across the world. But we cannot do it alone. We need all of you to join us, and I certainly hope that you will. It is so great to see all of you here tonight. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you.